clutter one's life, I decided to get rid of it.
You're not a hoarder?
I'm not a hoarder. I'm not a hoarder. I decided, well, it's okay. It was great. I loved it. Great experience. Time to get rid of stuff, and I destroyed the scripts because I didn't think. I didn't want to just put it out. I mean, a second.
Because, well, I remember the. I'm sorry.
No, my feeling was it was like a sense of privacy. Well, you don't want to just put this stuff out on, in the trash because who knows who will end up with it, and it's kind of private stuff. And so I destroyed all those stuff. If I'd only known.
So you're not a hoarder, but you are anal.
Peter's scripts were if he didn't shred them, and he knew there was the internet. Now he used to write things in his script. I mean,
but
I can't.
It was
there
clean.
was salacious. No. I read those notes, those parenthetical notes.
But they were to you. Or as we called Chitara in those days, Thunder Thighs.
Oh.
I've always referred to her as the original Thundercats hoe.
See what you started?
Get it?
Okay, guys, because we're friends now. Yeah, maybe I slept around, but I never slept with a cat. I just never did. It wasn't my thing.
So this is the first year that we've actually had writers join the panel. So Lee and Matthew, could you give us some insight as to how you...
Time, I was a playwright, and I was trying to write spec scripts for TV comedies. And it's one of those things where I knew a guy who knew a guy. And I got a shot at writing one of these scripts, which for me, as a playwright, I knew upstage, downstage, stage right, stage left. And this writing for Thundercats was like writing for the multiverse. It was like writing for a whole other dimension. You have X, Y, Z axis, and time. So it was like going from Newtonian physics to quantum mechanics. And I felt really amazed and lucky to be working with people like Matthew and Peter Lawrence, who really knew how to visualize things. So how did they get the job? I would say a lot of it was a right place, right time kind of thing, because there was no previous blueprint in my work to figure out how to write in those kind of dimensions and for those kind of characters. I'd written a lot of fiction and things like that, and I've written a lot of different kinds of things, but nothing with that level of, it's happening in all these dimensions, there's all these different characters, anything can happen, people can switch voices, whatever you want can occur. I didn't have that kind of freedom before. So I would say dumb luck was a possibility, and right place, right time.
I think it's great to have a couple of writers on the panel, because it's very rare. And I remember back when we were recording, Jerry Ann, you remember you used to always be saying, "Who wrote this crap?"
Count on Larry. And I think it's extraordinary to be discussing plutonium physics on a panel of Thundercats, because as an actor, I actually, studied plutonium physics.
It's
it was
Newtonian.
I actually studied Newtonian physics.
It's linoleum.
I actually studied, and it was a choice between that or doing Thundercats, and A equals C squared.
Okay.
Oh,
That's as close as she's going to get, so don't wait for the
If you can't bring your relatives into this, I can't listen.
If I could, Lee,
Yeah.
I just want to, Larry, could you be next? Not about you this time.
Will it take long?
1 minute.
1 minute. It's a 30-second spot. I did the voice of Monkey, and that episode, Monkey's Bargain, is one of my favorite to record. It was so much fun. Monkey got the spotlight. He gets to take over the world, and it's a total flop at the job. It's crashing down at the end. It was, to record as an active play, it was just so much fun. So it's just great to see you.
Thanks. Yeah.
After all these years.
Yeah, thanks. It was really unusual experience to figure that out, you know. And Peter was really helpful, you know, because there were times where I felt I didn't really know what I was doing at all, because there's so much freedom in this. You know, you can do anything. And for someone who's used to actors on a stage, and then suddenly you can, you know, things can fly, and you can blow things up, and there's no, what's the budget for that? Well, you know, the guys just have to draw it. It's pretty amazing. But I really want to hear from Matthew, one of the great Thundercats.
I started at Rankin Bass because I knew Jules Bass because I used to date his daughter, which is the way I suggested. So you want to get to show business. Yeah. So I knew Jules Bass and I worked for him before Thundercats. And when I got there, I didn't know anything about animation. So I worked in production before I was a writer. I directed these fine actors doing voices, wherever they are, and worked on storyboards and did all sorts of stuff before I started writing. So it was a great experience. And like Lee says, the thing about an animation script, if you have one, you compare it to a regular motion picture script. There's tons of words in an animation script because we're creating a picture, and we have to be as clear as possible in creating a picture. And it's an amazing opportunity, and it's hard as hell. But when you see it, even if it's poorly animated, once you see it on the air, it's a very gratifying experience. So that's it.
Yeah, I mean, movie scripts are like haiku, but animation scripts are like architectural plans.
Right. It's every detail, which is what's great. So.
We used to make all those noises that weren't really words or part of the script after we had recorded the show. And then we would come and stand there and go,
We would call them
like all those other things would come in after. That was a separate thing.
Lee would actually call them oohs and ahs sessions,
Ooh
or
and ahs sessions,
grunts and groans
right.
session.
Grunts and
She'd
groans.
say, okay, we're good for the day, but stick around. We may need some grunts and groans, some oohs and ahs.
Yeah, so if your rhino falls off a cliff, we need the impact.
The actual
and
sound
you
of
go,
it.
and yeah, so it's,
And sometimes, most of the time, I think, those things, we would do that for something that had already been animated, that we'd recorded a few weeks before, but once it was animated, they decided we're going to have something for when we didn't realize he was going to hit the ground so hard, or what I remember, and
yeah, we had a huge reel of just grunts.
Where is that reel?
Yeah, it's under my bed.
Oh, that's funny. You should be a writer.
Speaking of writing, so for Lee and Matthew, what level of effort was there to try to maintain continuity throughout the series, and how difficult was that as the episodes increased to well over 100?
I never dealt with, my scripts were kind of out of the ordinary because I tried to write funny scripts, and so I didn't deal with continuity. Lee was on staff as a writer. I was just freelancing, so
I dealt with it somewhat. When I was a story editor on Silverhogs, I oversaw all those scripts, and then I did become more interested in continuity because, you know, if something blew up and it was in the next episode, that didn't make sense. But yeah, that's an interesting question. The primary continuity was really character continuity. It's, you know, like, could these guys make it be in that character? And sometimes I would write some jokes. You were better at the jokes. I would write jokes, and they would say, "They wouldn't. That's ridiculous." And I'd have to, you know, Peter would rewrite them, or he would fix them, or someone would change them. So I think the primary continuity was characters.
Okay, so for I guess Matthew, you can weigh in on this too, because one thing that I forgot to mention that I had learned from speaking to him, that you were also a director for the voice actors for the first season. So, what was it like? It still blows my mind that so many voices were just basically done by a handful of people. What was it like to go from voice to voice in your recording sessions? Was it difficult? Was it something that you could just do in one take? Could you just give some insight into that? Well, it's for Matthew, but also for any of the voice actors too.
all I can say very briefly, It was the most fun, and I haven't had as much fun going into the studio with these guys and recording. We would record, I believe, 3 shows in a day, and it was just
Two,
Two,
and then
yeah,
two.
two.
Yeah,
Two,
one in the morning, one
and
afternoon.
then one morning, afternoon, and then the next
Then
day,
one.
one.
Yeah.
Is that-
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 a week, yeah.
Three a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just a great experience, and these guys can have more, I'm sure, but you have to understand, nowadays in animation, they call separate people in for every character that appears.
Yeah.
Back then, we had 7 people, and they did everything in the first season, absolutely everything, and that's amazing.
And that was the most fun to
We
be
just
able
five,
to
we
with
just
the
five.
actors
Five, yeah.
in the studio and play off of each other, as opposed to what happens now, where you go in
Yeah.
and you just have, you do your line like 3 times, and then you do it again, and go down the line for each line. And it's not the same, the
It's not fun.
atmosphere
It's not fun.
it
Well,
wasn't fun.
it was all just terrific. There's a wonderful actor named Earl Hyman who did Panthro, who was
Yeah.
also the father of Cosby at the time. And being an African-American actor at that time, the world wasn't open to him. So he was like, we would have lunch sometime and he would say, I can't believe I'm making so much money. I'm making money, and he was also a Shakespearean actor. So when we would finish recording the show and he wasn't doing Cosby, he would go off to Europe and the Scandinavian
Yeah.
countries and play Lear. It
And
was amazing.
Just to mention, he also acted in Norway. He was
Yes.
famous in Norway, and he spoke Norwegian, acted in Norwegian. So this is not your average guy. So wonderful that he did these great, created these great cartoon characters, but he was an exceptional human being beyond that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I always did my stuff in one take, perfectly. Just the original question, I just wanted to.
That is bullshit.
Outtake.
That is totally, totally, there's a lot of discussion these days and rumors and trying to legalize marijuana. You call it marijuana, weed, pot,
I call them more.
When I
Any
would
more?
walk into the studio,
I guess
and
more.
I was the only woman, I was just, I'm sort of a conservative, never,
Larry, are you holding?
it was a fog, and they go, yo, Chitara's here, wow.
Don't forget Adolf Caesar, talking about this,
Adolf
another
Caesar.
actor, with his nap between takes. He just lie down on the floor, Adolf,
And he doesn't get up and do his perfect take.
and had the deepest voice of Adolf Caesar had such a voice.
Yeah.
And he was a little tiny man, very short, and he had a very, very deep voice.
And that the story about him, because he had never really done this kind of work before and didn't completely understand the process. And so while we were reading a script, while we were doing a show, there came a part in the scene where his character, is in a fight, gets hit and falls down. Well, he does it, and threw himself on the floor. I'm just observing, just a visual observer. And so I think Lee was directing at the time, and so she just very kindly said, Adolf, that's terrific, but we'll take care of that afterwards, those sound effects. So you don't have to do that. It was all fine after that, but I was stunned, But if you didn't know the process, so as an actor, as a fine actor, experienced actor, here you go. So you never know what you're going to come up with in showbiz.
He won an Oscar, didn't he?
Yeah,
For,
he was
Soldier
nominated.
Story.
Soldier Story.
Yeah, that's right.
Nominated.
Yeah. He was nominated for an Oscar,
Yeah.
yeah.
Soldier
Yeah.
Story. That's
He died of alcoholism.
Aw.
Yeah, he did.
You die from that?
Yeah, I may like this one too.
Gotta go something.
So the next question I have is actually for Jerry Ann and Lynn. Thundercats, I guess, is primarily thought of as a show, at least in the 80s, for young boys, but there are a lot of female fans of the show as well. And could you talk about the cultural impact that you've been made aware of by your characters on female fans that grew up with them in the show?
I was the Gloria Steinem of cats. I think having a strong female character, whether it's animated or real,
Live would be the other.
live would be another, was a great. It was just great for kids, especially young girls, to see a woman who could stand even with a man. So I was very proud of Chitara, and most of the characters, like Pandora, they were all strong, which speaks of the writers, that they cared to make the women as equal to the men in the characters of the,
Because there were only 2 of us, and Lynn was there the whole first year. I wasn't on the show the first season. And so there were all these men in the studios, and we were very special because we were the only ones, and so the female voice came up. And there were a lot of, negative characters, like Chilla and so forth. It was great fun to do that, and it was just a ball. People appreciated it. It's fun to do.
The little girls, I think I spoke of this last year. I used to go up to like shelters and schools up in uptown in New York and Harlem and stuff, and take the scripts. Not the ones that were annotated by Peter, but and they would just, would act them out. That was the idea of why I took them, and they would act them out, and they were so excited. But the little girls were as animated and as ferocious as the guys, and sometimes they would say, I want to be Lionel, I want to be, they want to be the male characters. So it was a lot of fun.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, you don't know a lot about me, Larry.
Larry, tell the story about when in Toys R Us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think everybody knows it.
Everybody does.
If you haven't, or it's, and I always tell this. Well, thank you, Jerry. And when people ask, when did you first realize the show was a big hit? For me, it was. I was Christmas shopping at Toys R Us, and it must have been. The show went on the air in '85, didn't it?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct.
We began recording in late '83, as I recall.
No,
84, 84.
yeah.
So this must have been then Christmas of '85. Okay, doesn't matter. But well, I'm trying to get the time frame because it matters to the point of my story. But I'm in Toys R Us, and I walk in, and suddenly there are 3 aisles only Thundercats toys. Now that's when a week before it had been maybe 1 aisle Thundercats, 1 aisle Ninja Turtles, 1 aisle Master Universe, Image. You know what I'm saying? There were so many. Now it was 3, and I said, oh my God, the show was a big hit. And as I'm walking down the aisle looking at everything, the Cat's Lair, and they had the Thunder Tank, and there are 2 boys, probably between 8 and 12. And I can hear them. One of them says, "I'm gonna get Tiger. He's the coolest." One of them, and I smile. The other says, "I think I'll get Panthro, because he's really tough." So me, I have to be the guy. I can't just silently walk on. I go over and I half jokingly said, "Hey guys, you ought to get Lionel, because he's the one who says, thunder, thunder, Thundercats. Oh!" And they look at me like. So I walk away, and I hear one of them say, "It sounds made up," so I swear to my children, especially my son, I'm not going to feel it. I hear one of them say, "He didn't even sound like it." I stopped and I laughed. I thought, if he only knew. He'd shit his pants if he knew the plan.
I know.
And I hope this has been on the internet. I always bring this up in interviews. I hope that kid at some point sees that and goes, "That was him."
His name was Jeffrey Katzenberg.
It was Sam Register.
Chris Trengrove, who wrote, I think he wrote some Thundercats, but he wrote Silverhawks. So he used to say when he saw one of the characters that he created, it was like seeing one of your children grow up and become shrink wrap.
Oh, that's fun.
You know, one of the things, we're all actors, so you go to an audition, you know, even years later, even to this day, and you have it on your resume, you know. But it's just one of those lines on a resume, but you go into an audition and somebody looks at it and goes, oh, I see you do this in Thundercats? And they are impressed, you know, and it breaks the ice in some way because, you know, they're saying, oh, wow, oh, she could do that, you know. I guess she could do Lady Macbeth.
Somebody, about the fame and the effect of it, and somebody asked last night, even one of our big fans, Nick, I think, asked about, or somebody asked about personal appearances. Did we do personal appearances? Maybe it was you, Brett? Yeah. Brett. Okay, Brett. Did we get to do personal appearances in line with either promoting the cartoon itself or toys? And we didn't. And my thought about it, as we were discussing, was that, well, remember, these are the kids who are, you know, between 5, 6, 10 at the time. They don't want to see us. You know, they see us, and what's that got to do with anything? So no, we never did. When they eventually did a show, a live Thundercats show, it was with the people in the muscle costumes, you know, looking like the characters, because that's what was important to the kids.
I was, Peter, apropos of that, I was visiting my family in Illinois while the show was on, and my brother Steve had apparently told all the neighborhood kids that Lion-O is coming. What an idiot. Because I get to his house, and he's the smart brother. To the house, and he's got them all in this other room. I didn't know, he hadn't told me that there were kids in there waiting. I didn't know he had told them Lion-O. He says, come over to the house. And he opens the door and there's like 14 kids between 5 and 15. And my brother goes, hi kids, Lion-O! And they're all like, I said, Steve. Well, he's the guy who does the voice of Lion-O. Now that's not impressive either, you know. Not as much as it would have been if Lion-O had walked in. I have the leotard, but it's not.
I want to see it.
See it later.
Fantasy night.
I'm surprised they never, now this is going to sound like...
Oh, not from you, it won't.
No, not from me. Did they ever make a porn movie with the title of
Yes, I think they call it
Thank you for coming.
the titles of those movies sometimes are, I don't know.
She does seem to have a lot of information about it.
No, that was enough fun.
And Thundercats pose.
All right, we'll open it up for fan questions.
Or open the door so they can run.
This is for the voice actors. I know, as actors, we usually pull from real life inspirations. Do each of you have any outside inspirations that help find your character voice for your characters?
Gandhi. I used him a lot.
Isaac Newton, Newtonian.
For me at least, and I think for all, maybe for all, our Thundercats characters, our voices. I mean, Lion-O was my voice. Then we all did other characters and mutants, which was, for me at least, the most fun to do, because I think any actor will tell you, playing a bad guy, whether it's on film or it's on stage, especially an animated bad guy, is the most fun, because as the writers were telling us, you can take them anywhere and be phantasmagorical with them and make them do just. So to be able to act that, you know, I mean, I always envied Earl Hammond for being able to, you know, ancient spirits of evil.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
You know, Mumm-Ra drools, right? Earl did that as he was doing, literally, right?
Yes.
In fact, it got to the point, after several episodes, after several recording sessions, we would all be looking pages ahead, and we'd tell each other, page 5, Earl's going to do it. And we'd all start Gallagher audience, plastic, because Earl would go, ancient spirits of evil, and he would start wiping it. Transform it all, Christ.
Sound effect, when we do the sound effects at the end of the script, it would sometimes save the Mumm-Ra's big laugh for the end because it was so taxing for
Yeah,
her
it
to
was
do.
so hard. I mean,
And-
it was so heavy on his vocal cords.
And he knew what was coming, you know, and sometimes he would start just lose it, it'd be gone.
And you did that with Monkey too.
Yeah, that's true. The sound effects afterwards.
Well,
The thing about, I'm just sorry, from real life, this notion, the only thing I can think about, and obviously, you know, we all have in our heads whatever our experience is, but sometimes with characters like Monkey or Bengali, just the notion of what would an ape sound like, what kind of, you know, or Bengali, wow. It comes from watching National Geographic or whatever.
I've always wondered, Ariane, because you're one of your many characters, Chilla.
yeah.
Now that was an unusual voice, and what was your thought process of what
Well,
should
it
sound like?
was written that I'd make this blue breath blow out, and then I'd have a speech to do, and it was extremely difficult to go and then have to talk because you have nothing in there. So what I did was I did it in, and then I had plenty of breath to do the thing, and it would sound as though it was all out. So it would be, and then I would talk, and I had plenty of voice to say whatever it was that I had to say, because I had all that air.
I think that.
Here I thought it was some philosophical thing.
But the guys, certainly the first year, when I was surrounded by these sort of masters of doing this, they would say things to me like, you know, and growing up, when you grow up, you're always imitating other people. I mean, that's what you do. You become other people. So that growing up and being an actor, it was watching other actors, and Larry or Pete or Earl or excuse me, all of them would say, oh, give us a little Katharine Hepburn, oh, give us a little Betty Davis, oh, give us a little this and that, you know. And if you listen to some of the characters there was just a plethora of them where there was a slight bit of Katharine Hepburn, and there would be Betty Davis, or I remember there were twins I did once, and to delineate.
Newtonian.
They constantly made fun of me, even then. They just put me down.
No, we weren't laughing at you. We were laughing near you.
There was Mia Farrow, I remember, because I had done a play with her, and she had done something, and she had done a Chekhov play that I had seen, and it was her doing an English accent, and she would talk like boring, boring, boring. And there's a character in Thundercats who was Mia Farrow. So it's not so much an inner life for me, many of the characters, but what the ideas the guys would, you know, give me, and then I would just sort of put it together in some silly way.
I remember kind of channeling for Jackal Man, who was my main mutant. I thought of, well, a jackal you think of, at least I think is kind of, I don't know, sneaky. For me, that, yeah, kind of sly and creepy and, you know, lurking. And so I had that in mind. But I also, one day, first day, I'm like, how am I doing? Suddenly popped in my mind, and I don't know if you folks are old enough to remember Snidely Whiplash.
Oh yeah.
Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Yeah.
Now, right?
Yes.
I'm going to tie you to the railroad tracks now.
So that's where Jackalman kind of got that little.
Sure.
We must get the Thundercats, yeah?
You know, references, there seems to be really nothing original. I mean, we are,
Wait a minute.
I mean, if we were doing, say, older Thundercats today, I mean, what? Give me Miley Cyrus's voice.
Oh.
You know what that sounds like?
Oh.
You know what I mean? I mean, there aren't things I
I would do Lionel if we did it again as like Michael Jackson.
Oh.
Andrew Chitara, stop teasing. Oh, shut up.
Oh, hey. You guys are just like amazing. I have to say that. I love seeing you guys every time at PowerCon. And sadly with Thundercats, the newer show that just ended, if it ever comes back, since you guys are so connected with these characters, how would you like, you know, your characters to be portrayed in a new incarnation? Like, what would you like them to wear? What would you like?
I wouldn't want Mumm-Ra to be evil. They turned her evil, and she was not evil. She was strong and, you know, ballsy, but not evil.
Right.
So that's my.
Don't be around the bush. What did you think?
When I saw the one of the episodes of the new Thundercats, I was just surprised how dark it was.
Mm-hmm.
Not only in the shades, literally, but the tone as well. That Wily-Kit and Wily-Kat. We did those, the kittens.
Oh, yeah. Let's get to do it.
Hey, I'm talking now.
All right, you two. Turn this thunder tank around. Go no further.
They had become street urchins. And I commented to somebody that the only thing was missing was they weren't picking food out of a garbage can. Now, listen, it's a different world now. It's a different world, and I don't know that the original Thundercats would work because kids are so much more sophisticated and have been exposed to so much more, so much sooner. I don't know if it would be interesting enough to them. So that's fair. That's fair game. But it would be interesting in the context of whatever somebody else came up with. Remember, we're actors, and it's a job, it's work, it's what we do. And as much as it was wonderful then to do the audition, get the job, it would be that same experience in this new context, to have the new assignment to create the characters anew for this world, for this Third Earth revised, or Fourth Earth, whatever you would want to call it.
But nobody was given that opportunity except Larry.
Yeah, Larry.
He was in the new one for a short time.
Mom always liked me, Ben. I thought that was actually a wonderful homage to Warner Brothers when they asked me to do Claudius, Lionel's father. And it turned out to be that it was, after talking with Dan Norton, who was the art director, and all the people, the writers, all those people in Warner Brothers who worked on that show, and they began working on that show in the year 2000, believe it or not. The idea, Warner Brothers. We had a panel yesterday with Dan Norton and a couple of other guys from Warner Brothers. And they were all Thundercats fans as kids. They loved Thundercats. And so they began promoting they were working within Warner Brothers, got kind of covertly together and said, we've got to come up with some ideas to give the front office for a new Thundercats. So they started in the year 2000, coming up with the way characters should look. And finally by the year 2005 or 6, they had convinced them to do a new show. Then it took another 4 years to put it together. But that's how long they had been working on the idea, because they loved it so much. That's why there were so many references, little Sam Flynn, Burbles, Overburbles, and stuff like that. And asking me to do that is an homage to all of us and to the entire cast.
He's the only one that got paid for it.
Don't be the
the money.
Who loves the
Show me the money. Pizza blank.
And one flashbacks. And an homage to the fans of the original show as well. We showed the Warner Brothers took me out to brought me to San Francisco for WonderCon in 2010.
Yeah.
Were you there?
Yeah, I was there.
And they showed the first full episode
Yep.
in this theater of 4,000 or 5,000 people. We were backstage and doing interviews and things like that, so we could hear the thing, but it was so loud you couldn't tell at what point we were in the episode and stuff. Suddenly, this enormous roar went up from the audience, and I turned around and Dan Norton from Warner Brothers came over and he said, "You know what just happened on screen?" And I said, "No." The audience recognized you as Claude is saying, "Thunder, thunder, thunder," and I teared up.
Aww.
So the audience got it. Not that that's Larry Kenny, not that that's, but that's the voice we remember, and they put it in the show. So that's what it meant about it in the box.
Aww.
But yeah, I did get paid. Show that's I'm so proud of. On the Discovery Channel, but wait, it's called Tickle. It's a spin-off of Moonshiner. Well, looks like Tickle's in trouble again. Boss Hogg's after him. Daisy May won't wear them little cut-off shorts anymore.
Oh my God.
That's what I'm doing.
Yay.
Well, I'm just finishing my first play, which was read at San French, which is a place in New York, they publish plays. And I was doing this web series. There are a lot of web series that you'll never see the light of day, and I do believe this will be one of them. It's called Her and Yet. I have no idea, but it's fun. And I've been doing not. Are you coughing? I love to do books on tape, which I still continue doing, and I recently started to, just because I like to give back a lot, reading for the blind, and what else? I do a lot of things in the city. I'm just finishing off Broadway play, which was really bad. I did a number of readings at this wonderful theater in New York called Rattlestick, which is sort of an off-Broadway theater, but they do lots of wonderful plays, and I work there a lot. So that's about it. And I'm on the street a lot these days. It's hard to be on the street again. But people take credit cards now. Even I have an Apple.
How about you?
Well, I've been cleaning out my sock drawers. And tomorrow I'm going to be going to the dump to see if I can find those scripts that I threw away. I go into town, still in the commercial business. For me, not a lot going on work-wise, and sadly, I have to admit, I'm kind of content just chilling out a lot of the time. My wife and I travel. We like to travel. We have more time now because she's not working.
Peter's wife is sitting right there.
There she is.
Aww.
Hello.
She is a wonder. He is so lucky.
Would you mention your beautiful wife's name?
Oh, all right. Yeah.
I'll tell you why I said after.
Okay. Gina. Her name is Gina. Hi, Gina.
I'll tell you why, because there's an old country music star named Hank Snow. That big wheeler rolling down the track. I was at the Grand Ole Opry in 1973 when he was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. The man stands up to make his speech, and he says, "I want to thank," oh my gosh, because the inductees don't know they're going to be inducted until that, so they don't have a chance to write a speech. So give him that. He stands up and says, "Oh, fans, I want to thank all the fans of the world for buying my record. RCA Records, I've been with them 57 years. Oh, thank you so much. And my management company and Larry, Kenny, and all the country music disc jockeys out there, thank you so much for playing my records. But most of all, I'm sorry. Most of all, I want to thank the woman who's been by my side for 61 years, the love of my life, Mrs. Hank Snow." And she stands up and waves just happy as hell as she can be to be Mrs. Hank Snow. And to this day, I don't know what her name is.
But Gina will not answer to Mrs. Tigra. How I tried.
I'll walk again and just say, we from here over are used to getting lovely applause and accolades from people like you. I don't know if these guys down here ever get much of a chance, but I'd like to give it to them now. If they didn't write it so good, we wouldn't be able to record it like we did.
If it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage.
Yes.
Don't squat with your spurs on.
Stop by, Jerry and Larry, Lynn, and Peter have a table, so stop by, say hello.
I will.
Get an autograph. And this concludes the panel. Thank you.
Yeah.
Check out bkbn.net. Jason David Frank, Tommy the Green Ranger.